Emily arrived at the Navy SEAL training base on a bright, chilly morning. The sun was just rising, casting a golden glow over the vast compound filled with concrete buildings, training grounds, and rows of disciplined recruits moving with precise coordination. She carried a heavy duffel bag, filled with her gear, but the weight of it seemed light compared to the anticipation and nervous excitement she felt inside. This was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. Years of training, running, swimming, and mastering survival techniques had led her to this point, yet nothing could prepare her for the reality of being at the SEAL base. As she stepped onto the compound, Emily immediately noticed the atmosphere. Every recruit moved with purpose, shouting orders, running drills, and demonstrating a level of discipline that was almost intimidating. Their faces were hard, focused, and determined, while their bodies showed the results of years of physical training. Emily felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. She knew she was ready physically, but the social environment was an entirely different challenge. She realized quickly that she was different from most of the other recruits. Her appearance, her quiet nature, and even the fact that she was one of the few women in a sea of men made her almost invisible. Emily tried to introduce herself to a few fellow recruits, but her efforts were met with polite nods or awkward silence. It was as if her presence didn't register with them. The other recruits were already forming their small groups and friendships, sharing jokes, and discussing past experiences that Emily couldn't relate to. She began to feel a sense of isolation, a quiet pang that reminded her she was truly alone in this new world. But instead of letting it discourage her, Emily turned inward. She reminded herself why she was here: to train, to prove herself, and to earn her place not through words, but through actions. The first day was a blur of introductions, briefings, and basic assessments. Emily noticed how each detail mattered, from the way recruits stood in formation to how they handled their equipment. Every instructor she encountered was strict, often cold, expecting nothing less than perfection. Emily watched carefully, learning the unwritten rules of the base. She realized that being unnoticed could be an advantage. She could observe, learn, and plan without the pressure of others' expectations. During physical training, Emily's skills became apparent, though few seemed to notice. She completed push-ups, sit-ups, and long-distance runs with precision and stamina. She moved with a quiet strength that contrasted with the loud, aggressive energy of many of her peers. While others tried to impress with bravado and unnecessary gestures, Emily focused on consistency and technique. Even when instructors barked commands or critiques, she stayed composed, correcting herself silently and pushing her limits. The mental challenges were even tougher than the physical ones. Recruits were constantly tested on their ability to follow orders, think under pressure, and adapt quickly. Emily encountered moments of doubt, complex drills that required split-second decisions, swimming exercises in freezing water, and tactical maneuvers that demanded both strength and intelligence. She struggled at times, as anyone would, but she refused to give in to frustration. Each small success, each completed task, built her confidence quietly. What made Emily's first day especially challenging was the social invisibility she experienced. She noticed that when mistakes were made, her peers' mistakes drew attention and comments, but when she performed flawlessly, nobody remarked. Her quiet competence went unnoticed, almost invisible to the eyes of others. Yet this became a lesson in patience. She realized that recognition would not come immediately. She would have to earn it, silently and consistently, day after day. By the end of the first day, Emily found herself sitting alone on a bench, watching the sunset over the training grounds. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, and a gentle wind rustled through the trees. She felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had survived her first day at the SEAL base, but more importantly, she had kept her focus, her discipline, and her resolve. She promised herself that she would not be defined by whether others noticed her. Her mission was larger than approval. It was about mastery, honor, and proving to herself that she belonged. That night, Emily laid out her gear carefully, preparing for the next day. The weight of being overlooked, ignored, or underestimated was heavy, but she chose to see it as fuel rather than a burden. She knew the road ahead would be long, grueling, and lonely at times, but she also knew that every great journey began with a single step. And today, she had taken that step, not with fanfare or recognition, but with quiet determination and unwavering focus. By the time she fell asleep, Emily understood one crucial truth. Being overlooked did not make her weak. It gave her the chance to rise above distractions, prove her worth through action, and prepare for the moment when the world could no longer ignore her. That moment, she hoped, was coming, and she was ready for it. Emily's second day at the SEAL base began with the same early morning chill and the sound of boots echoing on the concrete. She had already experienced the sting of being overlooked on her first day, but today brought something new: mockery. The other recruits, most of them young men with years of physical training behind them, began to notice her presence in a way that was not respectful. Their laughter was soft at first, whispers that followed her down the halls, questioning her ability to handle the intense training ahead. At breakfast, she sat at the far end of a long cafeteria table. A group of recruits near her noticed her quiet demeanor and began exchanging sly jokes about her, laughing at her polite, serious responses. Emily kept her head down, focusing on her food and her plan for the day. She knew that responding to them would only give them the satisfaction of seeing her bothered. Instead, she reminded herself of why she was here. She was here to train, to push herself beyond limits, and to earn respect through actions, not words. The morning drills began, and Emily immediately faced the full force of the rigorous training. Push-ups, pull-ups, running drills, and obstacle courses tested her stamina. Some recruits continued to make subtle comments about her pace or form, while others openly doubted her strength. They made jokes about how long it would take for her to keep up, about how unlikely it was that she could pass the grueling training. The mocking was relentless, and Emily could feel the weight of it pressing down on her, but she refused to let it distract her. Each movement, each exercise, was a silent statement. She was capable, and she would not be deterred by petty comments. When the instructors assigned a group challenge, a timed swimming and obstacle relay, Emily's team initially ignored her suggestions. She tried to contribute ideas about strategy and pacing, but her peers dismissed her, rolling their eyes or shaking their heads. Even though her voice was quiet, her mind worked fast. She silently mapped out the best way to approach the course, memorizing every detail, analyzing the strength of each team member. During the relay, Emily's preparation became apparent. She moved with precision and focus, completing the obstacles efficiently and helping her team gain time. The instructors noticed, but the other recruits continued to underestimate her. The mental strain was as challenging as the physical. Emily had to constantly keep her mind sharp, thinking several steps ahead during drills, anticipating challenges, and staying composed under pressure. Her peers, however, continued mocking her behind her back. They assumed she was fragile, inexperienced, or lacking the mental toughness required to succeed. Emily often heard comments like, "She won't last a week," or "Why is she even here?" Instead of letting anger or frustration take over, Emily used these moments as fuel. She repeated to herself that proving them wrong wasn't her primary goal. It was about proving to herself that she could excel even when ignored or ridiculed. During one particularly grueling endurance drill, recruits had to run through a course filled with mud, water, and heavy obstacles while carrying weighted backpacks. Emily noticed that some of the strongest recruits were slowing down due to exhaustion and frustration, yet she maintained a steady pace, careful not to burn out too early. While others stumbled or complained, she focused on rhythm and breathing, pushing through discomfort with quiet determination. By the end of the course, she crossed the finish line exhausted but unbroken. A small victory that went largely unnoticed by her peers, but quietly registered with the instructors. Even in moments of success, Emily felt the sting of isolation. While her team celebrated their own achievements, she often stood on the edge, a silent observer. The mocking and exclusion created a barrier, a feeling that she was constantly outside the social circle, no matter how well she performed. Yet Emily learned to find strength in solitude. She used the downtime between drills to study techniques, review tactical strategies, and mentally rehearse scenarios that could arise in training or real missions. She began to realize that being overlooked gave her an advantage. She could focus fully on self-improvement without distractions. By the end of the day, Emily was physically drained and emotionally tested, but her resolve had strengthened. She had endured the mocking, continued to perform flawlessly under pressure, and discovered a deeper inner strength she hadn't fully recognized before. While her peers may have doubted her, Emily knew she was proving something important, not to them but to herself. Each insult, each whisper, became a step in her journey toward self-confidence and quiet leadership. That night, as she lay on her cot in the barracks, Emily reflected on the day. The laughter and mockery that had followed her like shadows had not broken her. Instead, they had sharpened her determination. She understood now that being underestimated was not a weakness, it was an opportunity. It allowed her to grow without distraction, to focus on mastery and discipline, and to prepare for the day when her abilities could no longer be ignored. In the darkness of the room, Emily promised herself that she would continue to rise above the ridicule. She would use every challenge, every mocking word, and every moment of isolation as fuel to become stronger, faster, and smarter. She knew that the road ahead would only get tougher, but with every step she took, she was building a foundation that no one could dismiss. And deep inside, she sensed that one day, all the mockery and doubt would be replaced by the recognition she had quietly earned. As the days passed at the SEAL training base, Emily began to realize that being overlooked by her peers had a hidden benefit. While the other recruits were busy mocking her or showing off in front of each other, Emily quietly honed her skills and discovered strengths she hadn't fully recognized before. She was determined to let her actions speak louder than words, and slowly, her true abilities began to emerge. The morning started with a demanding obstacle course, designed to test strength, agility, and endurance. Emily had faced these challenges before, but today felt different. She was no longer focused on proving herself to the others. Instead, she concentrated on each movement, each grip, each jump. Her technique was precise, almost flawless. She climbed ropes faster than most of her teammates, scaled walls without hesitation, and navigated the muddy pits with an ease that surprised even the instructors. While her peers were distracted by trying to impress each other or complaining about the difficulty, Emily's calm and focused approach allowed her to excel. During tactical drills, Emily's intelligence and strategic thinking began to shine. In one exercise, recruits were divided into teams and given a simulated mission requiring stealth, coordination, and quick decision-making. Emily observed the situation carefully before taking action. She analyzed the strengths and weaknesses of her teammates, anticipated potential mistakes, and quietly suggested adjustments to the plan. At first, her teammates ignored her advice, still skeptical of her abilities. But as the exercise progressed, Emily's strategies proved to be crucial. Her team completed the mission efficiently, avoiding errors that could have cost them valuable points. The instructors took note, nodding in approval at her precise and effective decision-making. Despite her growing competence, Emily's peers continued to underestimate her. They whispered behind her back, assuming she had just gotten lucky in a few drills. They focused on her quiet demeanor, thinking it meant she lacked confidence or toughness. But Emily remained undeterred. She understood that earning respect in this environment would take time and consistent performance. Each challenge she faced, every skill she mastered, was another step toward proving her worth. Not to them, but to herself and to those who truly mattered, the instructors and higher-ranking officers. One of the most significant areas where Emily's hidden strengths appeared was in endurance. The physical demands of SEAL training were brutal, testing not only strength but mental resilience. Long runs, swimming in icy water, carrying heavy equipment. These were all part of the daily routine. Emily noticed that while others relied on short bursts of energy and often burned out, she could maintain a steady, sustainable pace. She pushed through exhaustion quietly, her body moving efficiently while her mind remained focused and clear. This allowed her to complete exercises that left others struggling, further proving her stamina and determination. Another unexpected advantage of being overlooked was the opportunity to learn from observation. Emily watched her peers carefully, noting their mistakes and strengths. She learned to anticipate their actions during team exercises, which gave her a subtle but powerful edge. By understanding both the environment and the people in it, she could adjust her strategy in real time. This ability to analyze situations quietly and act effectively became one of her greatest hidden strengths, something that her peers could not see because they were too focused on making noise and trying to impress each other. Even during downtime, Emily continued to grow. She studied tactical manuals, practiced her swimming and climbing skills, and mentally rehearsed difficult maneuvers. She understood that success was not just about physical strength, but also about preparation, knowledge, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. Each quiet hour spent improving herself was a step toward becoming the SEAL she had always dreamed of being. The instructors began to take notice. While her peers were loud and attention-seeking, Emily's consistent performance and calm confidence stood out. They observed her completing drills perfectly, leading quietly when necessary, and demonstrating an almost instinctive understanding of strategy and teamwork. The instructors respected skill and discipline above all, and Emily's hidden strengths were beginning to earn her their quiet admiration. Despite the growing recognition from the instructors, Emily remained humble. She knew that her journey was far from over, and that earning the respect of her peers and higher-ranking officers required persistence. She embraced the challenges, the mockery, and the isolation as tools for growth. Every whispered doubt, every dismissive comment became fuel for her determination. She began to see herself not as someone ignored, but as someone who was quietly preparing for a moment when her true abilities would be undeniable. By the end of this period, Emily had transformed in subtle but powerful ways. She had grown stronger, faster, smarter, and more resilient than she had imagined. Her hidden strengths, physical endurance, tactical intelligence, mental focus, and quiet leadership, were emerging, ready to be revealed at the right time. While her peers continued to underestimate her, Emily understood that the moment of recognition was coming. She had the skills, the discipline, and the inner resolve to rise above the doubt and mockery, and she was ready for the challenges ahead. For Emily, being overlooked was no longer a setback. It had become an advantage. It allowed her to develop in ways that others could not, to prepare quietly while others wasted energy on distractions. She had discovered a truth that would guide her for the rest of her journey. True strength and leadership were not about being loud or seeking attention. They were about mastering oneself and letting actions speak louder than words. Emily was ready for the next phase of training, knowing that her hidden strengths would soon become impossible to ignore. The day of the critical training exercise had finally arrived, and Emily could feel the tension in the air. Everyone on the base knew that this drill would determine promotions, leadership opportunities, and the respect of both peers and instructors. The recruits gathered on the training grounds, each of them tense with anticipation. Emily, as always, remained calm. She had spent countless hours preparing, studying tactics, refining her physical abilities, and observing her peers. She knew this was the moment to put everything she had learned into practice. The instructors explained the exercise. It was a complex, simulated mission that required endurance, strategy, teamwork, and precision. Each team had to navigate a series of obstacles, complete tactical objectives, and return with accurate results, all within a strict time limit. The stakes were high. Mistakes could cost points, lead to disqualification, or reflect poorly on the recruit's overall performance. While most recruits immediately began boasting about their abilities or questioning their teammates, Emily quietly listened, analyzing the requirements and mentally planning her approach. As soon as the exercise began, Emily noticed how some of her teammates struggled with basic coordination. They were rushing, panicking under pressure, and making errors that slowed the team down. Her peers who had mocked her earlier were now visibly frustrated, realizing that completing the exercise would not be as easy as they had expected. Emily, however, remained composed. She focused on pacing herself, monitoring her team's performance, and looking for opportunities where her skills could make a difference. When the first obstacle appeared, a high wall requiring both strength and timing, Emily took the lead. She helped teammates climb efficiently, giving clear, concise instructions without seeking recognition. Her calm confidence was contagious, and slowly, her team began to synchronize their efforts. Where others panicked or wasted energy, Emily's steady guidance kept them moving efficiently. It was clear to the instructors that her leadership, though quiet, was effective and strategic. During the navigation portion of the exercise, Emily's sharp observational skills became invaluable. She quickly assessed the terrain, identified the safest and fastest routes, and corrected teammates who were veering off course. Some tried to argue or dismiss her suggestions, but Emily stood firm, speaking calmly and confidently. As the team followed her direction, they began to make up lost time, moving faster and more efficiently than anyone had anticipated. The most challenging part of the exercise was a simulated rescue mission. A mannequin representing a wounded comrade had to be retrieved under strict time pressure while avoiding hazard zones. While others rushed and made mistakes, Emily carefully assessed the risks and devised a plan. She guided her teammates step by step, ensuring they completed the rescue without errors. By the end of this segment, her team had not only finished the task successfully, but had also gained points that put them ahead of several other groups. The instructors watched closely, impressed by her tactical thinking, composure, and ability to lead without dominating. Despite her success, Emily's peers were slow to acknowledge her contributions. Many were still skeptical, attributing her achievements to luck or small advantages. They whispered doubts, trying to downplay her skill and leadership. Emily had long stopped caring about their opinions. She had learned that recognition from the wrong people could be distracting. What mattered was her own performance and the approval of those who truly understood excellence, the instructors and the officers overseeing the training. By the time the exercise ended, Emily had demonstrated something remarkable. She had not only completed the drill with precision and efficiency, but had also elevated her entire team's performance. Where others had struggled under pressure, Emily had thrived, combining physical skill, mental focus, and quiet leadership. The instructors noted her abilities carefully, recognizing that she possessed the qualities of a true SEAL: resilience, intelligence, teamwork, and composure under pressure. That evening, as Emily rested in the barracks, she reflected on the day's events. The critical exercise had been both physically exhausting and mentally intense, but it had also reinforced her confidence. She had proven, first to herself and quietly to the instructors, that her abilities were real and reliable. She realized that leadership did not have to be loud or demanding. It could be quiet, effective, and respected without fanfare. Emily also understood that the journey ahead would continue to test her resilience. While the exercise had shown her true potential, she knew that gaining the respect of her peers would take time. Many of them were still skeptical, their minds clouded by preconceived notions about who belonged in a SEAL team. Emily accepted that she could not control their opinions, only her own actions. Each success, each demonstration of skill and leadership, was another step toward eventual recognition. By the end of the day, Emily felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The exercise had challenged her in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally, but she had risen to the occasion. She had proven that being quiet, overlooked, or underestimated did not mean being weak. In fact, it had allowed her to focus fully, hone her skills, and demonstrate her true potential when it mattered most. As she prepared for bed, Emily knew that this was just one of many challenges she would face. The critical exercise had been a turning point, a moment that would quietly set her apart from the others. She felt ready for whatever came next, confident that her dedication, discipline, and hidden strengths would continue to guide her. Emily had taken another major step toward earning the respect she deserved, and deep down, she knew that the world could no longer ignore her abilities for long. After the critical exercise, Emily found herself in a complicated place. She had proven her skills, demonstrated her intelligence, and even helped her team succeed, yet her peers still kept their distance. They whispered behind her back, exchanged skeptical glances, and often left her out of informal discussions. While she had earned quiet respect from the instructors, among her fellow recruits, she was still an outsider. Emily realized that being physically capable and mentally strong was only one part of her journey. Gaining acceptance and respect in a team environment required patience, resilience, and the ability to rise above social isolation. Emily quickly learned that solitude could be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it was lonely. Meals in the cafeteria were eaten alone. Small groups of recruits would pass her without acknowledgement, and she often felt the sting of exclusion during downtime. On the other hand, isolation gave her space to focus completely on her growth. She could concentrate on refining techniques, pushing her endurance limits, and mastering skills without distraction. While the other recruits spent time gossiping, complaining, or competing for attention, Emily used every quiet moment to become stronger, faster, and smarter. Training during this period was relentless. Recruits endured long runs, grueling swimming drills, obstacle courses, and tactical exercises that tested their limits. Emily approached each challenge with determination and calm focus. She never rushed to show off or draw attention, but she consistently performed at a high level. In every drill, whether it was scaling walls, crawling through mud, or carrying heavy loads across difficult terrain, she executed with precision. Even when the instructors offered constructive criticism, she absorbed it without complaint, immediately applying adjustments to improve her performance. One of Emily's key advantages during this period was her ability to observe. While others were busy talking, joking, or trying to outshine one another, she studied their techniques carefully. She noticed mistakes they made repeatedly and learned from them. She also watched for patterns in the instructor's expectations and rules, understanding exactly what would earn points and recognition. By quietly gathering this knowledge, she was able to improve faster than anyone else and anticipate challenges before they became problems. Despite her growing skill and confidence, the emotional weight of being overlooked was significant. At times, Emily felt frustrated, wondering why her efforts were not acknowledged by her peers. She had hoped that after the critical exercise, her teammates would start treating her differently, but the social gap remained. Instead of allowing resentment to build, Emily reminded herself that her journey was not about others' approval. True recognition came from sustained performance, discipline, and integrity, qualities that could not be faked or ignored forever. Emily also began to develop mental resilience during this period. The isolation forced her to confront her own fears and doubts. She reflected on why she had chosen this path, what motivated her to endure the pain and exhaustion, and what kind of SEAL she wanted to become. Each night, as she lay on her cot, exhausted from the day's drills, she visualized overcoming future challenges, imagining herself leading teams, excelling in missions, and earning respect not through words but through undeniable competence. These mental exercises strengthened her focus, calmness under pressure, and inner confidence. The instructors continued to notice her quiet consistency. While other recruits made mistakes under stress or complained about challenges, Emily maintained her composure. She did not seek praise or recognition, but her abilities and steady performance spoke for themselves. Instructors began to point out her strengths subtly, noting her efficiency, endurance, and strategic thinking in evaluations. This external acknowledgement gave Emily reassurance that her efforts were not in vain and motivated her to continue pushing herself, even in the absence of peer approval. Physical endurance remained a critical part of Emily's growth during this period. She pushed herself beyond limits that others found unbearable, swimming longer distances, running faster and farther, and completing obstacle courses with precision. She learned to manage pain, fatigue, and mental strain, understanding that resilience came from maintaining consistency under pressure, not from bursts of energy or temporary effort. Her body became stronger, her stamina grew, and her confidence in her abilities solidified with each completed drill. By the end of this phase, Emily had transformed in ways that were not immediately visible to her peers. She had cultivated discipline, resilience, intelligence, and a quiet authority that made her stand out to instructors. She had learned to turn isolation into an advantage, using it to focus entirely on self-improvement rather than seeking validation from those who doubted her. The social gaps that once felt like barriers had become opportunities for growth, giving her a perspective that others lacked. Emily realized something crucial. Being ignored or underestimated was not a weakness. It was a chance to build strength, master skills, and developed the kind of quiet confidence that commands respect without demanding it. She had endured loneliness, mockery, and doubt, and emerged stronger, more capable, and more focused. Each day of hard work, each challenge overcome, was preparing her for the moment when her hidden abilities could no longer be ignored. As she prepared for bed that night, Emily felt a sense of calm satisfaction. She had survived grueling days, pushed herself beyond limits, and found strength in solitude. She knew that the hardest part of the journey was still ahead, but she felt ready. The isolation, the mocking, and the challenges had made her more than capable. They had made her determined, resilient, and unbreakable. Emily understood that the respect she sought would not be given freely. It would be earned through relentless effort, consistent excellence, and quiet perseverance. And deep inside, she knew that she was ready for the moment when the world could no longer overlook her. As the days and weeks passed at the SEAL training base, Emily's quiet perseverance began to pay off in ways she hadn't fully anticipated. While her peers continued to overlook her, mock her occasionally, or underestimate her abilities, Emily's consistent performance and unshakable discipline started to draw attention from a different group, the higher-ranking officers and instructors who watched the training closely. These were men and women who had decades of experience, who could see potential even when it was hidden beneath layers of humility and silence. It began subtly. During routine drills, Emily's name started appearing more often in the instructors' private notes. They noticed the precision of her movements, her calm under pressure, and her ability to anticipate problems before they occurred. While others might brag about their accomplishments, Emily simply did her work quietly and efficiently, leaving no room for doubt about her capabilities. The instructors admired this form of leadership, one that didn't demand attention but naturally influenced those around her through competence and composure. Word of Emily's abilities began to circulate quietly among the command. Officers noticed her performance in endurance runs, swimming drills, and tactical exercises. Her stamina was unmatched, her strategic thinking sharp, and her mental focus unwavering. She had the rare ability to remain calm in the most stressful situations, a trait that was vital for a SEAL. Even when missions were simulated under extreme pressure, Emily's decisions were deliberate and effective, showing maturity beyond her years. These observations reached the ears of those in higher ranks, and whispers of her potential started spreading quietly through the base hierarchy. Despite the growing attention from officers, Emily remained unaware of just how closely she was being observed. She didn't seek praise or validation. Her focus was entirely on her own growth and performance. She approached every task with the same quiet determination she had shown since her first day, pushing herself physically and mentally. While her peers continued to underestimate her, some even mocking her behind her back, Emily's achievements became a quiet testament to her capabilities. She had learned to measure success not by applause or recognition, but by her own standards of excellence. One particular moment highlighted Emily's growing reputation. During a complex tactical exercise, she noticed a flaw in her team's strategy that could have cost them significant points and possibly failure. Without hesitation, she quietly adjusted their approach, guiding her teammates step by step while keeping her composure. The instructors watched closely as her team executed flawlessly under her subtle leadership. While her peers had largely ignored her, the officers recognized her critical thinking, initiative, and ability to influence outcomes without drawing attention to herself. Emily's quiet brilliance was impossible for them to overlook. Another factor contributing to her rising recognition was her consistency. Many recruits performed well sporadically, excelling in one drill but failing in others, or losing focus when under pressure. Emily, however, performed consistently at a high level across every task. Her stamina, accuracy, problem-solving skills, and mental resilience remained constant, day after day. This level of reliability impressed the officers who knew that in real-life operations, consistency was often the difference between success and failure, life and death. Even with this growing attention, Emily faced her own internal struggles. She knew that the recognition she was receiving from officers did not yet extend to her peers, and she still felt the sting of isolation. During group activities, she remained quiet, still largely excluded from social bonds and informal alliances. However, Emily reframed this loneliness as an advantage. It allowed her to observe, reflect, and learn without distraction. She could study the techniques of others, analyze the expectations of instructors, and refine her own abilities in ways that distracted recruits could not. In essence, being overlooked by her peers gave her a unique edge that even the higher-ranking officers could see. The growing attention from command also brought new opportunities. Emily was occasionally asked to demonstrate skills, lead small teams, or assist in high-pressure drills. Each time, she performed flawlessly, showing not just competence but also calm leadership. Officers began to take note of her potential for leadership roles and future assignments that required both skill and discretion. They saw in her someone who could command respect naturally, not through loud words or arrogance, but through performance, intelligence, and integrity. By the end of this period, Emily had come to understand something crucial. While peer approval was delayed and inconsistent, recognition from those who truly understood excellence, experienced officers and instructors, was far more valuable. She realized that her patience, discipline, and consistent performance were earning her a reputation that no one could ignore. Her journey had taught her the importance of staying focused, remaining humble, and using every challenge, every moment of isolation, and every opportunity to quietly excel. Emily went to bed each night exhausted but satisfied. She had proven to herself, and to those who truly mattered, that she had the talent, resilience, and intelligence to succeed. The recognition she was beginning to receive from higher-ranking officers was just the beginning. Deep inside, Emily sensed that her perseverance and hard work were building toward a moment of undeniable acknowledgement, one that would eventually change the way everyone, even her skeptical peers, viewed her. The day the 4-star general arrived at the SEAL training base was electric with tension and anticipation. The entire base seemed to be buzzing with excitement. Recruits lined up for inspection, instructors straightened their posture, and the air was filled with a sense of expectation. For Emily, the day was just like any other, except she had no idea that it would mark a turning point in her journey. She had spent months quietly proving herself, enduring mockery, isolation, and grueling training, but recognition from someone at this level was far beyond anything she had imagined. As the general entered the training grounds, the presence of authority and experience was palpable. He walked with a measured confidence, his sharp eyes scanning the formations of recruits. Instructors quickly fell into step beside him, explaining drills, progress, and performance assessments. Emily noticed the shift immediately. The usually strict instructors seemed even more precise in their instructions, aware that the highest-ranking officer in the room was watching. For many recruits, this was intimidating. Some straightened nervously, others fidgeted, and a few tried to act braver than they felt. Emily, however, remained calm. She had learned long ago that true composure was about staying focused on the task, not on who was watching. As the general walked past the formations, he paused occasionally to observe certain recruits. Emily, quietly standing at attention, caught his gaze. There was no fanfare, no dramatic gesture, just a moment of observation. He seemed to study her posture, her focus, the calm confidence in the way she held herself, and something in his expression changed. Emily felt a mixture of surprise and nervous anticipation. She had worked silently for months, and in that instant, it was as if her efforts had been noticed on a level she had never expected. The general continued his inspection, moving from group to group, speaking with instructors and observing drills. Emily participated in a timed tactical exercise during his visit, one that required focus, precision, and teamwork. As the exercise unfolded, Emily moved with her usual calm efficiency. She led a small segment of the drill, guiding her team silently but effectively, anticipating potential mistakes, and ensuring flawless execution. The instructors observed her performance closely, and Emily sensed that the general's attention had returned to her. When the exercise was complete, the general approached Emily directly. The room seemed to hush for a moment, as if everyone sensed the gravity of the moment. He studied her carefully, noting the quiet strength in her stance, the discipline in her demeanor, and the confidence that came not from arrogance but from competence. Without a word of hesitation, he saluted her. The gesture was simple, yet it carried immense weight. For Emily, the salute was more than an acknowledgement of skill. It was validation of every hour of grueling training, every moment of isolation, and every silent effort to excel despite being overlooked. The reaction of the other recruits was immediate and mixed. Many froze, unsure how to respond. Some looked on with astonishment, realizing for the first time that Emily was someone extraordinary. Those who had mocked her now had to confront the reality of her abilities. Whispers spread through the ranks as the significance of the general's gesture sank in. For the first time, Emily's peers could not ignore her. The respect she had quietly earned over months of dedication was now visible for everyone to see. Despite the attention, Emily remained composed. She understood that recognition, while satisfying, was not the ultimate goal. She had trained not for applause, but to be competent, prepared, and reliable in any situation. Yet, the general's salute symbolized something deeper. It was a moment of undeniable acknowledgement from someone who held the highest level of authority and experience. It proved that her perseverance and dedication had been noticed and valued at the highest levels. After the formal inspection, the instructors and higher-ranking officers discussed Emily's performance quietly among themselves. They spoke of her discipline, intelligence, and leadership potential. What had been a hidden strength, quietly observed over months of training, was now impossible to overlook. Emily had demonstrated that true leadership could be quiet, strategic, and effective, and that competence alone could earn respect, even in an environment as challenging and competitive as the SEAL base. For Emily, the day marked a turning point. She realized that all the challenges she had faced, the mockery, the isolation, the doubts from peers, had prepared her for this moment. Her resilience, quiet confidence, and dedication had not only earned her recognition, but had also inspired those around her, even if indirectly. She understood that respect earned through action and integrity carried far more weight than the shallow approval of peers or the fleeting recognition of social popularity. As the general concluded his inspection and departed, Emily returned to her duties, carrying a quiet pride. She knew that while the salute had been an extraordinary moment, her journey was far from over. The acknowledgement of her abilities by someone so highly ranked was a milestone, but she still had to continue proving herself daily, through performance, discipline, and leadership. The path ahead remained demanding, yet Emily felt stronger, more confident, and more focused than ever before. That evening, as she reflected on the day, Emily understood a simple truth. Perseverance, patience, and consistent excellence cannot remain hidden forever. Her abilities, long overlooked by her peers, had finally been recognized at the highest level. The general's salute was more than a gesture. It was a powerful reminder that true skill, determination, and leadership are always visible to those who know how to look. And for Emily, it was proof that her journey, though challenging and lonely at times, was leading her toward the respect, recognition, and success she had quietly earned. After the four-star general's visit, Emily's life at the SEAL training base began to change in ways she had long anticipated but never rushed. The salute she received was more than a gesture. It was a signal that her dedication, resilience, and skill had been noticed at the highest level. Slowly, the ripple of recognition started spreading, touching not only instructors but her peers as well. The very same recruits who had once ignored or mocked her now began to see her in a new light, realizing that Emily was not just capable. She was extraordinary. At first, the shift was subtle. During drills and exercises, her teammates began paying closer attention to her instructions. When she offered advice or suggested strategies, they listened rather than dismissed her. Emily noticed these changes but remained focused on her own performance, understanding that respect is earned consistently, not granted instantly. She quietly continued to refine her skills, lead by example, and support her teammates when they faltered. The combination of humility, competence, and unwavering focus made her an increasingly natural leader, even among those who had doubted her. One day, during a particularly challenging tactical exercise, Her team faced a simulated mission with complex obstacles and time constraints. The recruits had to navigate through a mock urban environment, rescue a hostage, and return to a designated point while avoiding penalties for errors. Emily's peers, now more receptive to her guidance, followed her lead carefully. She coordinated movements, assigned tasks based on individual strengths, and anticipated risks before they became problems. The mission was executed almost flawlessly, and the instructors praised not only her skill, but the way she had quietly led the team without dominating or belittling anyone. The effect of her growing reputation extended beyond formal drills. In the mess hall, recruits who had previously ignored her began to include her in conversations, asking for her opinion on tactics or training methods. Even casual interactions started to show a newfound respect. Emily, however, maintained her humility. She never flaunted her accomplishments or tried to make her peers feel inferior. Instead, she continued to lead quietly, demonstrating that true leadership is about supporting others while remaining disciplined, focused, and reliable. Emily also noticed the impact of her recognition on new recruits. Many looked to her for guidance, seeing in her an example of perseverance and excellence. They had heard whispers about her abilities, the salute from the 4-star general, and the quiet authority she commanded. For them, Emily became a symbol of what could be achieved through hard work, discipline, and patience. Her journey inspired others to push beyond their limits, showing them that success is not always about being loud or seeking attention, but about consistent effort, resilience, and integrity. The instructors and higher-ranking officers continued to acknowledge Emily's talent and potential. Evaluations consistently highlighted her leadership, decision-making, and strategic thinking. They recognized her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure, anticipate challenges, and execute tasks with precision. In some exercises, she was entrusted with greater responsibilities, including leading small teams or demonstrating advanced techniques. Each opportunity allowed her to reinforce the respect she had earned while honing her skills for future missions. Despite the attention and recognition, Emily never lost sight of the lessons she had learned from her earlier struggles. She remembered the days of isolation, mockery, and doubt, the moments when her peers ignored her or questioned her abilities. Those experiences had built the foundation of her resilience. They had taught her patience, focus, and the value of quiet perseverance. Now, as she began to be recognized by peers and superiors alike, she understood that her journey had not been about proving others wrong, but about proving herself right, proving that she could meet and exceed the highest standards under any circumstances. The moment of full acknowledgement came gradually but powerfully. Instructors began to openly praise her contributions during group briefings, citing her performance as an example of excellence. Peers who had once doubted her began seeking her guidance and, in some cases, apologizing for underestimating her. Emily accepted this new respect with grace, never letting it make her complacent. She understood that recognition was not the end of her journey, but a milestone that affirmed her path and motivated her to continue striving for excellence. By the end of her training cycle, Emily had become a figure of quiet authority on the base. Her peers respected her not because of rank or status, but because of her consistent demonstration of skill, intelligence, resilience, and leadership. The 4-star general's salute, once a singular moment of validation, had become a symbol of what Emily represented: the triumph of dedication, perseverance, and unshakable focus over doubt, neglect, and adversity. Emily reflected on her journey often, understanding that every challenge, insult, and moment of isolation had been essential to her growth. She had learned that being overlooked was not a setback but an opportunity to build strength, resilience, and character. The respect she had finally earned from both peers and superiors was the result of countless hours of effort, silent determination, and unwavering commitment to excellence. As she prepared for the next phase of her life and career, Emily carried a quiet confidence and a sense of fulfillment. She knew that her journey had taught her lessons far beyond physical endurance or tactical skill. It had taught her about patience, integrity, perseverance, and the true meaning of leadership. In the eyes of her peers, her instructors, and even the highest-ranking officers, She was no longer just the SEAL girl who was overlooked. She was a leader, a symbol of excellence, and a living reminder that determination and skill could overcome even the deepest doubt. For Emily, the final recognition was not merely a personal victory. It was proof that silent dedication, consistent effort, and unwavering resilience can transform even the most overlooked individual into someone who commands respect and inspires others. Her journey had come full circle, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and truly unshakable.